Let's start with the mild and work our way towards the most brutal traps on the list. Number 8. The glue trap. The glue trap is probably the laziest trap on this list, and honestly it shows. It's just a flat board or tray coated in an insanely sticky adhesive, usually baited with a little peanut butter or a piece of food in the center. A mouse or a rat wanders over, takes one step onto the board, and immediately regrets every decision that led it to that moment. Once one paw is stuck, the animal panics, thrashes around, and ends up gluing the rest of its body down trying to escape. Now, the biggest issue with glue traps isn't even that they work, it's that they work a little too well and a little too slowly, which is why plenty of countries have straight up banned them. Either way, I'm sure the mouse would have preferred literally any other trap on this list, and that's saying a lot considering what's coming later. Number 7. The cage trap. Also known as the box trap, this one is basically the minivan of animal traps. Safe, boring, and gets the job done without any drama. It's a metal cage with a spring-loaded door and a trigger plate on the inside, usually baited with food. The animal walks in, steps on the plate, and the door slams shut behind it, trapping it alive inside. This is the trap of choice for anyone dealing with a raccoon in the attic or a squirrel that's decided your garage is now its house. Now, the only real downside is that some animals are surprisingly smart and will just reach in from outside, grab the bait, and walk away without ever triggering the door, basically pulling off a heist while the trapper watches in silence. Number 6. The net trap. The net trap comes in a few flavors, but they all boil down to the same idea. Drop a net on something before it knows what's happening. Some are simple drop nets rigged above a baited area that collapse the second an animal steps underneath, while others are spring-loaded net launchers that fire outward and wrap around the target in an instant. This method has been used for everything from catching birds to capturing larger animals for relocation, since, unlike a lot of the traps on this list, it's not exactly trying to kill anything. Now, the biggest flaw here is timing, because if you trigger it a second too early or too late, the animal just looks at the net, looks at you, and casually walks off like it wasn't even impressed. Number 5. The pitfall trap. This is where things start getting a little more medieval. A pitfall trap is exactly what it sounds like, a deep hole dug into the ground, camouflaged with sticks, leaves, or a thin layer of dirt so it blends into the surrounding terrain. Sometimes the walls are made smooth or angled inward, so that once an animal falls in, climbing back out is basically impossible. This trap has been used for centuries to catch everything from small game to genuinely massive animals, since the size of the hole just scales with whatever you're trying to catch. Now, the one problem with pitfall traps is that they're not exactly picky, so more than a few unlucky humans have found themselves at the bottom of one before realizing it wasn't the animal that got outsmarted. Number 4. The snare trap. The snare is one of the oldest and most widely used traps in human history, and for good reason. It's simple, cheap, and brutally effective. It's just a loop of wire or cord attached to a stationary object or a bent sapling positioned along a game trail where an animal is likely to walk through. When the animal pushes through the loop, the noose tightens around its neck or body and either holds it in place or, in the case of a spring snare, yanks it straight up into the air. Now, this is also where things start getting a little darker, since a poorly placed snare doesn't always mean a quick end. It can mean an animal stuck, struggling for hours, which is exactly why modern trapping laws are so strict about how and where these can be used. Number 3. The foothold trap. Also known as the Leghold trap, this one has a bit of a nasty reputation, and honestly, it's earned it. The trap consists of 2 spring-loaded metal jaws that lie flat and hidden, usually covered with dirt or leaves, with a trigger pan sitting in the middle. When an animal steps on the pan, the jaws snap shut around its leg or paw, holding it in place until the trapper returns. Older versions of this trap had sharp, toothed jaws that would tear into the flesh, while modern padded versions try to minimize injury, though the animal isn't exactly filling out a satisfaction survey afterward. Now, this trap has caused so much controversy over the decades that it's been banned or heavily restricted in dozens of countries, mostly because it doesn't discriminate between the fox you were trying to catch and someone's dog that wandered a little too far off the trail. Number 2. The deadfall trap. Now we're getting into the traps that don't take prisoners. A deadfall trap uses a heavy object, usually a large rock or log, balanced precariously on a trigger mechanism made of sticks. When an animal disturbs the bait or the trigger stick, the support collapses and the heavy weight comes crashing straight down, crushing whatever happens to be underneath it. This trap has been used by survivalists and hunters for thousands of years because it requires almost no materials, besides what's already lying around in the forest. Now, the tricky part is getting the trigger just sensitive enough to collapse on contact, but not so sensitive that the first gust of wind sends a boulder crashing down for absolutely no reason. Number 1. The Conibear trap. The Conibear, also known as a body-gripping trap, is easily the most efficient and most brutal trap on this list, and it earns that spot for a reason. It consists of 2 rectangular metal frames connected in the middle, held open under spring tension and set with a trigger in between. When an animal passes through the frame and hits the trigger, the 2 sides snap shut instantly, with enough force to kill almost immediately, usually by clamping down around the neck or chest. This trap was specifically designed to be more humane than something like the Foothold trap, since the goal is a fast kill rather than a prolonged struggle. Now, don't get it twisted though. Humane doesn't mean pleasant, and there's a reason this trap is responsible for more than a few horror stories from people who've accidentally set one off with their own hand, which is not exactly the kind of trap you want to be careless around.